All right, news roundup time, guys. Let's take a breather from all these breakdown vids, man, and let's mix it up. Let's talk about some Street Fighter 6 news today. And there has been a lot, man. With all the footage that's going around, I feel like the game has already been released, but no, we got a long ways to go. So first, yesterday, Capcom had their big showcase, and they had Street Fighter 6 on their schedule. And you know what they showed yesterday? Absolutely nothing. It was a complete waste of time for Street Fighter 6 news, man, and I woke up early for that too. But now that I think about it, it wasn't too much of a surprise because Capcom actually gave everybody a heads up on their Twitter. And they said, and I quote, "We had so much fun showing you what Street Fighter 6 is all about this past week and a half. While we prepare to show you what's next, we're going to be a bit more on the quiet side for a short while as we return to the development dojo. Thank you." So even though this is not exactly good news, I'm kind of happy we're getting a small break because I feel like we've really been spoiled with all the Street Fighter 6 news. And that's even if you don't even count the massive leaks. Just with the footage alone, I think they need to give like the community some time to sink all this information in. And we're gonna be hyped for a while. So I'm also glad that Capcom kept us in the loop. That's really uncharacteristic of them saying, "Hey, we're gonna be quiet straight up," instead of saying something like, "Hey, we're doing things differently this year," you know? But if you look at our calendar, the next big event coming up for Street Fighter 6 news is more than likely going to be at EVO 2022. So this will be taking place between August 5th and 7th. So pretty much less than 2 months away. I'm sure we're going to hear more Street Fighter 6 news and even more character reveals. Okay, interview stuff now. So I've watched and read all the recent interviews that have taken place that I could. And most of these interviews are all from the recent Summer Game Fest, where people in the gaming industry got their hands on an early build of Street Fighter 6 and asked some questions with one of the directors and the producer, Shuhei Matsumoto and Takayuki Nakayama. So let's just start things off with the two most important questions that a lot of people have for Street Fighter 6. There used to be three, but now we know it's not exclusive, it's on every platform. So the first is, will Street Fighter 6 have rollback? And obviously, we know Street Fighter 6 is going to have rollback. Street Fighter 5 did, but what we're really asking is, it's going to be better netcode than Street Fighter 5. And IGN asked this to Nakayama, and he answered, "As you know, Street Fighter 5 also had rollback netcode. But in terms of Street Fighter 6, it will also have rollback netcode. But it will not be the same as what we had in Street Fighter 5. And this is something we're building from scratch. There's a lot of effort being put into the development of netcode, and it's not something that only the netcode engineers are involved in. We're involving the battle team to participate in that development to ensure that the experience is seamless and that it actually feels good. We're working very hard towards it now." So the answer to this question is a really good sign, and honestly a huge relief, because even though the Kagemusha netcode was improved with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, the netcode in that game is actually quite good. It uses the same netcode as Street Fighter 5. I don't want Capcom to just try to improve the Kagemusha. I like the idea of them just starting from scratch, right? Let's make something really good. That's the same thing they did with the RE engine. They started from scratch, and I'm glad they're also doing testing with the battle team, right? But I hope they don't just do testing in Japan, because, we want to push it to its limits, and they should test it under harsher online infrastructures that are outside of Japan, like North America, for example. Okay, and now for the second hard-hitting question, will Street Fighter 6 have crossplay? And this is one of my biggest hopes for the game, man, because this game looks so big, it would be an absolute tragedy if it didn't have crossplay. And another thing, too, about crossplay, it's not just Capcom's decision as well, right? So this one's a little iffy, because first Max tweeted out that he got an answer directly from the devs, and he's like, "Yo, this is going to have straight-up crossplay." And I was ecstatic when I read this. But then IGN asked the same question, and they got this answer. They said, "We understand the importance of it, and it's something we're working hard on, and it's something we want to aim for." That's what Matsumoto said, the producer, right? And then they tried to reach out to Capcom for clarification, but the company isn't ready to speak more about crossplay or confirm it will be part of Street Fighter 6. So that was kind of a strange PR answer. And then finally, the question was asked again one more time, and apparently it was confirmed to be on all platforms. So who knows, man, if there's going to be crossplay or not. I'm going to say there is. I mean, it seems really obvious, especially with like Capcom really aiming for a lot of big multiplayer games. We have the Exo Primal Reverse, right? The new Monster Hunter is going to be insane, and Capcom has everyone like making Capcom IDs. They're obviously setting up for it, so they're not going to make a game this big like Street Fighter 6 without having crossplay. That would just be silly. And honestly, if Sony doesn't want to play ball or something happens, as long as it's one console with PC, I'll be satisfied with that. Maybe have all the consoles crossplay except for PS4. That way we don't have to worry about our stages lagging. And I'm joking, guys. It was a joke. We also got some video interviews with like IGN and GameSpot, etc. But the questions they were asking, they weren't spicy enough. We didn't really get any crazy answers. The biggest thing actually was from this huge interview from IGN Japan. And that was all in text, right? They didn't do a video on it, but the entire interview is not in English, but thankfully it has been translated by Scotia from the Reset Era forums. So appreciate that, Scotia. Now, I'm just going to pick out some of the answer from this. I'm not going to read the entire thing because it's huge. They asked a lot of questions. I'm just going to pick what I found interesting. But if you guys want to read the whole thing yourself, which I recommend, I'll leave the link in the video description. So right off the bat, this interview gets really interesting. It starts off by saying the development of Street Fighter 6 began in 2018. And I'll get to that in a second. But Nakayama, who is now one of the directors of Street Fighter 6, he created this 92-page proposal booklet for what he envisioned Street Fighter 6 being, that included the Fighting Ground, Battle Hub, and World Tour. So they had this planned out for a long time now. But anyways, let's get back to this 2018 part. So Street Fighter 6 has been in development for at least 4 years now. Now, if you've been following like the rumors and gossip and leaks and stuff like I have throughout the Street Fighter 5 years, this perfectly lines up when Ono actually got demoted all the way back like in the 2018 part, right? That's when they started Street Fighter 6. And that's when the big like Ryozo Sugimoto, like the producer and head of like Monster Hunter, he took over the fighting division, basically. Well, he took over like everything, right? And by the way, Ryozo Sugimoto is the son of the CEO of Capcom, the founder of Capcom, which is Kenzo Sugimoto. I thought I might add that. It's a nice touch. So I guess while Capcom was working on Street Fighter 6, and who knows how many like members the producer took off the team. That explains why Street Fighter 5 had one of the wackest seasons ever, man. That was the season where Kage came out, and then that's when Capcom's like, we're doing things differently this year, and we had nothing but drought for like 8 months straight. It wasn't until Evil where they released the 3 characters, Poison, Honda, and Lucia, which got leaked, by the way. That was horrible, and that kind of all kind of lines up now. All right, sorry about that, guys. I just found it very amusing, but let's get back to the interview. So they talk a lot about World Tour mode, which is something I'm personally really interested in. So they say they don't think of World Tour mode as an extra mode, but rather a single game's worth of content. So this thing's gonna be huge. They think the same about Fighting Ground and Battle Hub and say that it feels like they're making 3 games instead of 1, which has been trouble for the producers. I'll bet, man. Nakayama also slips up and reveals that Metro City is actually just the first stage of World Tour mode. I'm not surprised by this because, it is called World Tour mode. It'd be weird if it was just Metro City. And they said, we're aiming to create an experience where you can travel the world and become stronger. We're not just making a fighting game, we're making Street Fighter itself. The director also said that World Tour will also teach players and help them get familiar with the game. And in one of the interviews, one of the video interviews, they were saying, they're comparing it to Street Fighter Alpha 3. And the director was really pleased that they compared it to it. And they didn't like say anything further, but it's strongly hinted that this is obviously inspired by Alpha 3 and they're like evolving from that game into this mode. So that's very exciting. I hope they're gonna like teach players like all the special moves, and it's kind of like a little RPG, and you can make your character stronger and all that. It's gonna be awesome, man. World Tour mode as well as Street Fighter 6 will be faithful to the history of the series while expanding on from the starting point of Third Strike. So we kind of know where the storyline is now. It's pretty much where Third Strike is. And like Third Strike, Street Fighter 6 and World Tour will also have someone other than Ryu as the protagonist. Is it Luke by any chance? They also mentioned the new character Jamie in the interview and say that he came about due to the, never being a Drunken Fist character in Street Fighter 6, which is strange that they never had one. But also because he's so young, Nakayama wanted to add a current culture to him and thus made Jamie a breakdancer and set him up to be Luke's rival. And also they mentioned the drink in Jamie's jug. They call it Yakuyu, which is more like a medicinal tea and not actually alcohol. And then he said the drink was a special drink, and they started laughing. I think that's great because, Capcom doesn't want that alcohol rating to bump up the teen rating or whatever. There was also some talk about the drive system as well, And in the video interviews, they're basically saying that they didn't intend to use old abilities from old Street Fighters. It was more like they just kind of threw some abilities like at the wall and they're like, hey, let's have an attack that's like super powerful that can absorb stuff. And then like, hey, let's have something where like a shield where you can parry a bunch of things. And they kind of just stitch together and they try to build it off that and try to make it something really unique. They also mentioned in a bunch of video interviews that it was basically like a group effort. It wasn't just one dude saying, hey, this is how it's gonna be. You know, everyone kind of threw out their ideas and they all made it work together. So that's like a really good sign. And honestly, this is like the best part of the interview, which is near the end, where it says Nakayama talks about the development team for Street Fighter 6. And he says the development team members were all motivated and sincere, and they came up with new ideas and suggestions on a daily basis on how to make the game more interesting, so the functions and modes kept getting better and better. And he also says that he's never had such a positive development system in his entire development career, and that while it's been tough, everyone is eager to deliver a new Street Fighter experience. Matsumoto says that everyone has worked hard on the game, and they want to release new information bit by bit. And the IGN interviewer already felt that Street Fighter 6 was an ambitious project from the State of Play trailer. But after this interview, they got that sense that there are projects in the pipeline that are far beyond their imagination. And they tipped their hat to Capcom for allowing such a project to go ahead and giving the developers the freedom to create a new Street Fighter game as fast as they can. And then the final quote from Matsumoto is, I think we need to do this at this point, not just for 6, but for what's ahead. I don't want to see the Street Fighter brand disappear. So the biggest thing I want to challenge myself now to do everything I can for it. So guys, after reading this interview, you can tell there is a lot of passion on this project. I mean, I think it's really obvious just looking at everything that has been revealed so far. You know, from the inception of them writing, you know, Nakayama doing that huge 96-page, you know, battle plan on this, to the scope of the game, how they're trying to reach the biggest audience ever, the netcode from scratch, crossplay, all the consoles. I honestly think this will be one of the biggest fighting games ever if they, you know, accomplish their goal. So yeah, super exciting. I hope they keep up with the communication, and yeah, I'll keep you guys posted on the next news update on when we get more info for this game. Be sure to like read that interview yourself if you guys are interested. Like I said, I'll put the link in the video description. And yeah, I'll keep you guys in the loop, and I'll keep doing those breakdown videos while we wait. So until next time, guys, take care.